You're listening to Tim Bulkeley's 5-Minute Bible. Is hell an important Christian doctrine? The issue became a sharp one for a friend of mine recently. As he explained on Facebook, one of the elders in his church is complaining that he doesn't preach hellfire and damnation enough. But is hell an important Christian doctrine? Sure, you can find it in the Bible. But let me suggest to you that we submit the doctrine of hell to the test. Just imagine for a moment that two strangers turn up at your door and they try to teach you a new doctrine you've never heard before. Are these characters Christian? How will you know? The easiest way is to look at the doctrine they're propounding and see if it's expressed clearly and prominently in Scripture. Are there more than one place in Scripture where this doctrine is quite clearly taught? Anything less and they're either a weird sect or they're missing the point, avoiding the clear message of Scripture and going after something else. So let's put the doctrine of hell to this test. Is it clearly and prominently taught in Scripture? Well, the first question to ask is where we really find hell in the Bible. It's a bit complicated. There are several words that could be translated hell. At least at the beginning of this series, I'm going to focus on the word Gehenna in Greek, which is often translated as hell. The word doesn't occur in the Old Testament, in the Septuagint translation, but it does occur in 4 Esdras. 4 Esdras didn't make it into the Apocrypha, let alone into the Bible. It's part of the Pseudegrapha, Christian and Jewish writings that some Jews and Christians find useful. It does, however, occur in the New Testament, 7 times in 4 different chapters in Matthew, 3 times in 1 chapter in Mark, once in Luke, no times in John. So in the Gospels as a whole, 6 out of the 89 chapters mention hell. There are 2 other mentions in the New Testament, and altogether 8 out of the 260 chapters of the New Testament mention hell. It's not an auspicious start because that's just 3%. So it's clearly not a major theme, like God's love, Jesus' death, his resurrection, or things like that. But let's look closer. In part 1, I'm going to look at Jesus' teaching in Matthew. Matthew chapter 5 is the key. In this chapter, Jesus is proclaiming that he fulfills the law, that he takes it and fills it up to the full, to the brim, to overflowing, and makes it perfect. In that context, he says, if you say, you fool, you'll be liable to the hell of fire. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. It's better for you to lose one of your members than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. So, let's think about these. In the context of that chapter, is Jesus' language in these 2 verses literal language? Or is it hyperbole? Is it language which is chosen because it's powerful and carries punch, but to make another point? Because that's the question. Is hell the point of Jesus' teaching here? Or is Jesus teaching us something else? Is hell incidental? While you're answering that question, I'll move on to chapter 10, talking about those who are going to malign his household. So, have no fear of them, for nothing is covered up that will not be uncovered. Nothing is secret that will not become known. What I say to you in the dark, tell in the light. What you hear whispered, proclaim from the housetops. Do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather fear him who can destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground apart from your Father. And even the hairs on your head are all counted. So, do not be afraid. You are of more value than many sparrows. You see what's going on? You see Jesus' point here? Don't be afraid of human beings. Be afraid, if you're going to, of God, the one who can destroy both soul and body, if he chooses, but who loves you. Yeah, Jesus' point isn't hell. Jesus' point is the gospel. Jesus' point is that God's love should give us the courage to stand up against any human adversary. So what about Matthew 23? Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you cross sea and land to make a single convert, and you make the new convert twice as much a child of hell as yourselves. You snakes, you brood of vipers, how can you escape being sentenced to hell? Sounds clear enough, doesn't it? But again, is this literal language? Does Jesus mean what he says on the surface of what he says? No. The very notion of a child of hell is not literal language from the start. Nor is brood of vipers come to that. Something else is going on. So what is Jesus' point in Matthew 23? Read the chapter and decide for yourselves. But I don't reckon that Jesus is speaking in this chapter to convince us that hell exists and we better be frightened of it. So, we've looked at Matthew's Gospel. In the next podcast in this series, we'll go on and look at the rest of the New Testament. Bye for now. God bless.